Hey guys. So before spring break, we were talking about experimental and theoretical probability. So we're going to finish up on that lesson. So remember that experimental probability was what does happen. And the difference between that and theoretical probability is what should happen. So remember, theoretical probability is kind of just a fancy word for probability. It's the same thing. And experimental probability is when you actually do experiments. So we are going to start on relative frequency. So relative frequency is the total. Ooh, that is huge. All right, I fixed it. So relative frequency is the total number of successful attempts divided by the total number of trials. It can be used to make predictions. So this is beneficial because if you flip a coin 10 times, that's easy to get the relative frequency. However, this is useful when we have to flip a coin 1,000 times. That's where the predictions come in. So as the number of trials increases, the relative frequency of an event will approach the theoretical probability. So that means what should happen. All right, so we have this little fake spinner over here, and it says the spinner at right is spun 50 times, and the results are shown in the table below. Complete the experiment below. So this spinner was spun 50 times. All right, so out of those 50 times, it landed on 1 12 times. It landed on 2 8 times. It landed on 3 13 times. It landed on 4 10 times. And it landed on 5 7 times. Because see, it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now we have to find the relative frequency. So it says it's the total number of successful attempts. So the number of successful attempts is going to be 12. All right, so that's going to be our first number, 12. Well, it is divided by the total number of trials. Well, how many times was this spinner spun? It was spun a total of 50 times. So you're going to write that over 50. So 12 over 50. However, that can be reduced. You can divide both by 2 to get 6 over 25. So that's our relative frequency. If you wanted to put that in a percent, so it'd be easier to read, you would just divide 6 by 25. All right, so the relative frequency for 8. No, for the number 2. So the total number of successful attempts was 8 because it landed on it only 8 times. And divided by the total number of trials, it's going to be 50 for all of these because that's how many times the spinner was spun. However, you may notice that you could simplify this. They can both be divided by 2. If you divide 8 by 2, that gives you 4. 50 divided by 2 is 25. All right, for this one, the total number of successful attempts is going to be 13. So it landed on 13 times. Out of 50, 13 is a prime number, and you cannot divide 50 by 13, so that is our final answer. All right, for 4. 4 was landed on 10 times out of 50. You can divide both those by 10, giving you 1/5. And last but not least, number 5. Number 5 was landed on 7 times out of 50. You cannot simplify or reduce that, so that is our answer. So basically, this is pretty simple. You just take the number of successful attempts and divide it by the amount of times the experiment happened. and then you reduce if possible. So for your assignment for today, you're going to go onto your attendance. Obviously, you've already done that because you're watching this video. And you're going to click next, and it's going to bring you to this activity. So the directions are already here. So you're going to click on this link, and it's going to bring you to this spinner. You are going to need a piece of scrap paper and a pencil. So go ahead and grab that. So the directions say, spin the wheel 100 times. Record what number it landed on each time. Then find the relative frequency for each number and record your answer below. Yeah, no, you probably are like, oh, 100 times? Really? Yes, really. So if I were you, the smartest idea would to get a piece of notebook paper and write the numbers 1 through 100 so you don't lose track of how many times. So you would write number 1, and then you would click the spinner, and you would write 1 next to 1. Okay, the second try. So number 2, 5, and then so on. Then I would go through at the end and tally up how many I got for 1, how many I got for 2, and so on. So once you have all of your numbers, it's going to ask you to find the relative frequency of landing on a 1. So let's just say you, out of the 100 times, you landed on the 1 24 times. That's how many times you tallied up. So it'd be 24 over 100, and then you would just simply reduce that. You would put 24, and then the relative frequency, 24 over 100. And you're just going to do that for landing on a 1. Just putting random numbers in so I can show you, landing on a 2, and then till 5. So if you have any questions on how to do this, please let me know, and I will be happy to help you. See you tomorrow.